Hey everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. So this is my 12-minute self-introduction, and today we're going to be talking about the Tori story. So in this picture is my immediate family. I have my dad all the way over, my sister who just graduated, me, and my mom. It's the four of us. So the things we're going to cover today are my childhood, where I grew up, my family, where I went to college, and how my career has progressed since then. So I was born in Lenox Hill Hospital, which is in the center of Manhattan. It's a couple of blocks away from the park. My parents both lived in New York at the time, as did my grandparents. So this made a lot of sense for us. Lenox Hill is one of the most foremost neonatal places, and it was a wonderful place for my parents to have chosen to give birth. If you saw recently on Netflix, there was a documentary about what actually went on at the start of COVID inside an ER and an OB unit, and all of that was actually filmed at Lenox Hill Hospital. So let's talk about the reason I was in New York to begin with. These are my grandparents. Both sets of my grandparents lived in New York. My mom's parents, which are over here, lived in Long Island, and my dad's parents lived in Brooklyn, and they are on the other side of me. So they are a very large reason of why my parents ended up back in New York City and why I was born to live here. I stayed in New York for about a year when my parents decided they wanted to progress out of New York City because they wanted to open their own business. My parents are dentists. They met at Georgetown University Medical School and their dental school as well. At that time, the program was that they went through the first year of med school with the med students and then branched off into dentistry. So after going through school and working for other dentists in the city, they decided to start their own business out in a small town. Today, they own 2 practices, and they are both primary dentists. They have other dentists that work for them as well, and they teach throughout the country as far as dentistry goes and have created a very successful business for themselves. So their tiny little business ended them up in Long Valley, New Jersey, which is a small town about an hour outside of New York City. If you take 80 and just keep going, about an hour later, you hit this tiny little town. It's called Long Valley because there are 2 very large mountains and a valley right in the middle, and that's where the center of the town is. I lived on top of one of the mountains on the main road, and it really was the perfect place to grow up. It didn't have a huge city lifestyle, and there's a lot of outdoor space and trails and parks. So it was a very important part of our lives. And to this day, I love the outdoors, and I think that's a huge part of it. 3 years after I was born, another little nugget came into the family. My younger sister, this is a picture of us when we were kids. My mom loved to dress us matching, which sometimes we put up with. She's a super important person in my life, probably my best friend. And at that time, I treated her like I was her mom, and I dressed her up like a little doll, and we were just very close growing up, and we still are to this day. She last week graduated from New York University School of Law. She has been going to law school for 3 years. Law school was 3 years long. Before that, she went to Villanova undergraduate. And she's accomplished so much in a short period of time while she was at New York Law School. She's worked for judges and in federal courts, and now she has a job for litigating at Weill after she passes the bar. So that is what she's up to this summer. At some point, when college time rolled around, was when I actually left New Jersey and came down here to North Carolina. So these are pictures of where I went to undergrad, which is Elon University. It's down 40 an hour west of Raleigh. I was very fortunate to go here. They have extremely small class sizes, which works well for my personal style of learning, and I like being hands-on. And they had an anatomy lab that was a cadaver lab. As soon as I stepped on campus, I knew that's where I was going. It's such a beautiful campus because it's actually a botanical garden of the state, so the state pays to upkeep all of the grounds, and Elon doesn't do that. So it was a very beautiful